like I said, I've always been kind of a dreamer. I think that everybody has some sort of talent, or just everybody has something great that they can do. I just happen to find it. And it's taken not just me personally, but my family on this, crazy journey.
Today on the LA Food Podcast, I'm your host Lucas Servodio, feeling a little like Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson today because this episode is bringing you all the smoke. We're joined today by Danny Castillo, the pitmaster behind San Juan Capistrano's Heritage Barbecue, one of Southern California's premier barbecue destinations. In recent years, Heritage has earned the attention of the LA Times 101 Best Restaurants list. They've been named Restaurant of the Year by the OC Register, and they've even gained Michelin Bib Gourmand recognition. While Danny's Cali Craft Barbecue, as he calls it, is now legendary, the story that got him there is full of pit stops and perseverance. Danny shares with us how he went from fixing up old cars to working at Whole Foods to finally breaking out on his own to dedicate himself fully to his one true passion, smoking meats. Beyond Danny's story, I love this conversation because Danny shows his true barbecue nerd side. We speak in depth about the different types of barbecue, why certain woods yield different results, how the heck those big ol' offset grills you see at barbecue joints even work, and more. There's a touch of barbecue history in there and a ton of recognition for the pitmasters who paved the way for Heritage and others to thrive today. So whether or not you even eat meat, grab a bib and get ready, dear listener, because without further ado, let's chow down. Joining us today on the LA Food Podcast is Danny Castillo of Heritage Barbecue down in San Juan Capistrano. Danny, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm at home right now here in Oceanside, California.
How long you been down there in Oceanside in Orange County?
We've been in Oceanside for almost going on 3 years now. We lived in San Juan Capistrano. We were building out the first restaurant. Lived there for about a year and a half, and prior to that, we lived in the city of Anaheim, up in Orange County. Yeah, and that was a good amount of time in my life.
Yeah, for sure. So, but you grew up in Whittier. Did you spend most of your childhood there?
I did. I had kind of we moved around a lot as a kid, so the longest stint of being anywhere was in the city of Whittier. So that was like a grand total of about 8 years of my life. So that was the most consistent place that I've ever lived.
What was that like? What kind of food did you eat in Whittier growing up?
Well, surprisingly enough, actually, barbecue. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to go to Chris and Pitt's barbecue.
Mm-mm.
They're kind of throughout the LA and Orange County area. Definitely more of like a Southern style barbecue, but yeah, that's anytime there was a birthday or my mom said, "Hey, where do you want to go to eat?" That's usually where we'd go eat at is eat barbecue, specifically there, Chris and Pitt's.
Now, was this like a you-driven decision, or was this more like your family's tradition?
No, not at all. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, I'm self-taught, and there wasn't any type of real barbecue influence. It's just something that I just loved, and the type of barbecue that we do is completely different from the kind I grew up eating. But yeah, I've always loved it, man. When I was a kid, pork ribs, with lots of barbecue sauce. I think a lot of kids kind of like that though. But yeah, that's what I love to eat.
Was it the sweetness of the barbecue sauce that did it for you, or what? Or just the fact that you could kind of
Probably.
like go ham on like a big pile of meat?
No, yeah, probably a little bit of both. I love the smokiness of the meat, and I think they use hickory, which, like I said, is
Mm.
completely different from what we use. We use oak, but that sweet, smoky, oak flavor, and just being able to eat meat too. That's always been something that I've loved. I've always kind of been more of a savory person, but with sweets on meat is I love. But yeah, that was kind of my drug of choice, was eating meat over anything more than ice cream or cookies or anything like that.
For sure. What did you wanna be at this point in your life? Did you have your eyes on being a pit master once you tasted that sweet, sweet bite of hickory smoked meat?
No, not at all. Actually, as just kind of, I was always been kind of a dreamer as a child. So I think originally my hope was to be an astronaut. And that
Mm.
came and went. But yeah, when I got a little older in high school, I was really fascinated by cars, especially old cars. So I actually went to school to be a mechanic. That was kind of where I thought my career was going to head. But I just really like working with my hands.
Mhm. And did you spend any time working as a mechanic?
I did actually. I went to school. I went through 2 years of school to become a mechanic, and I spent less than a year straight out of school working for Mercedes Benz in Buena Park.
What you did, were you into it or was it just not your jam?
No, I definitely liked working on older vehicles. And these cars were so complicated, and just working on cars, uh, day in and day out was so boring, man. I just really
Mhm.
never got into it. I think that, if I would have went work with a classic car kind of mechanic or something like that, would have been a different story. But yeah, there's a lot
Mhm.
of things in my life that kind of, made me switch gears for what I wanted to do. And yeah, I know I really enjoyed being in school, because I dropped out my senior year when my wife got pregnant. And I went to go get that was
Mm.
like a big thing that kind of, I got thrown into the mix, and had to figure life out really quickly. So yeah, but cooking was something that I love to do as a hobby. Um, my wife and I we straight out of high school wound up in a little apartment together. So she was pregnant, and I did a lot of the cooking for her. And she's the one that kind of
Mhm.
pushed me more towards, you know, maybe finding a career in cooking, which I thought she was crazy at the time, but it ended up being, my path.
Was that your first foray into the kitchen, or did you spend time in the kitchen prior to that, maybe, like, growing up?
Yeah, I actually worked for Knott's Berry Farm, Mrs. Knott's
Mhm.
Chicken Dinner Restaurant. So
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you've ever been there. Have you ever had the fried chicken there?
It's legendary.
It's legendary. Yeah. So I actually got put on the line frying chicken, man, and that was a crazy thing to fry that much chicken. It was giant pressure cookers, and I mean, it was like nonstop, man. I had like the worst acne from all the grease in the air, but
Yeah.
I don't even eat fried chicken anymore. I
That's
think it
hila
literally scarred me.
that's so funny. So if no, you're not gonna see fried chicken on the Heritage Barbecue menu anytime soon?
No, in San Juan, we don't even have a fryer there.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So you did that, but you that was like a high school job. You weren't looking to, like, get into cooking professionally or anything, right?
No, no, no. We had such a small place, and oddly enough, our first little duplex in the city of Orange came with a rusty, you know, kind of piece of shit drum smoker that was in the back, and
Mm.
it was full of cobwebs and a bunch of shit. So I cleaned the thing out, and just bought some charcoal, and started, grilling chicken, and we would cook carne asada, pollo asado, things like that. And mostly, cheap cuts of meat. I'd go buy like a chuck steak, and my wife and I mean, we were super poor. Just two kids, in our first apartment. So it's just like whatever we could get at the store, I would figure out a way to marinate it, or so jam it full of holes so it'd be a little bit more tender, and throw it on the grill. And that's kind of where I first, started getting that love for being outside and cooking and working with fire. So
And your wife was like, "Damn, this chicken hits so much that you should actually consider doing this as a full-time job?"
I mean, I wouldn't say it was really good at that time, you know. That it was that kind of barbecue where if I did something like chicken, where I actually attempted to do some smoking, or even like one of my first cooks that I did pork butt and a brisket together, I cooked side by side, and they came off the pit at the same exact time, and I mean, it was terrible, man. It was it's that kind of barbecue that you eat and you're burping it like for 2 days, you know.
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
cooked properly, and you know.
Did you just sauce it up or what to make it edible?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hey, it makes great leftovers, right? Like
Yeah,
break it up, put it
tacos.
into to some pasta or salad, right? Yeah, tacos, exactly.
Hmm.
Um, cool. Well, okay, so we last left the story when you were leaving the job as a mechanic. What did you do from there?
Wow. So, man, I did all sorts of things. I worked construction. I did some basic,
Mhm.
labor work, and I worked doing pest control. I worked in a auto parts store. There's just so many different things, and I think during that time, I was just, for one, I just needed a job, and I kind of figured at that point, when we had a child, that I just needed to work, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, I didn't have really any education to back, a decent career path. So, you know, um, I just kind of floated around, and, I had friends that had a body shop. I went, worked there, sanding down cars, and, I mean, just basically floated on because like I said, I was always been kind of a dreamer. And,
Mhm.
I think that's why, my wife's such a great person. She's always kind of backed me, it's kind of rare these days where, that she's always believed in me. And she had this job where, she when she was able to go get a job, her first job was at Bank of America, and that kind of put her on a path to working with finance. And she worked her way up without, going to school, and she ended up in like corporate banking. And so she was the one that had kind of like that. She was the breadwinner, and I was just this guy that was trying to find myself. And
Mhm.
and the whole time, she believed in that I was going to end up doing something on a bigger scale. So when I was able to, she told me, you need to go to school and figure out what you're going to do with yourself. And she told me that it would be a good idea if I went to culinary school. So, thought she was crazy, but I started looking into it, and where we were with our personal finances at the time, we were able to qualify, and then having kids, uh, to go to school basically by getting, grants and things like that. So I enrolled myself into Orange Coast College in the city of Costa Mesa, and I had to take a bunch of general ed classes, which I wasn't really, looking forward to doing, since I wasn't really a guy that loved being in classes very much when I was in high school. But actually, I surprised myself, and I did very well in both the general education classes and the culinary classes. I much rather have been in labs than sitting in through
Mhm.
lectures and things like that. But those kind of things have to be done in order to get your degree. And so, yeah, I did very well for myself. I got a few scholarships. The old ladies would walk up to the stage and hand me a check for a few $1,000s, which was pretty rad. And there's people with a lot of money. There are people with a lot of money, and they want to help other people out. And so as soon as I started applying for those scholarships, and with the grades that I had, it just really helped out tremendously. And
Mhm.
from there, I had jobs working in, kitchens, not really anything exciting or important. I wish I could say like I had this like, amazing fine dining, stint and stages for different people, but I landed a job at Whole Foods Market, and it was supposed to be like kind of a temporary thing, and I worked in the prepared foods department. And
Mm-hmm.
my work ethic at the time was pretty strong, so I had a lot of kids, and I was older. Um, that would come into work, and they would be flaky and they wouldn't show up. So automatically, was promoted very quickly. And after a couple years there, I was able to gain some seniority, and so I kind of choose my hours and my days, and I'd come in at like 4:30 in the morning and cook breakfast for the entire hot bar that was there, and um, got to work in the smokehouse there. They had a meat department, and so I got to cook a barbecue there off this Southern Pride smoker that they had there. So I kind of got to mess around with smoking and seeing how proteins cook at longer temperature, longer amounts of time and different temperatures at kind of their expense. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I ended up staying there, man, for almost 7 years.
What's the barbecue game like at Whole Foods?
Actually, you know what? Not too bad. The Whole Foods Market originally comes from Austin, Texas. So and they
Mm.
have a smokehouse there in at their Austin location. But yeah, we used to cook brisket, we used to cook ribs, we do pork butts, and they had like their rubs that they would send in boxes, and then we got to have fun too by the meat department would have proteins that they wanted to get rid of, just like any butcher, from the original times where barbecue kind of came through the German meat markets through Texas. They same kind of thing. We had to smoke these meats and try to sell them before they went bad. So we got to cook pork belly, and we did all kinds of things, chicken. Yeah, we'd make little burn ends, and all kinds of fun stuff. Cook chicken wings and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So all this while you're, going to culinary school, you're getting your job at Whole Foods, you're holding it down there at Whole Foods. You have this like passion clearly that stems from your earlier like your childhood basically with barbecue. You seem to, even when you're talking about it, you sort of like light up when you talk about like the temperatures at which different meats cook and stuff. So it's clear like this passion was running through you. Can we I think a lot of our audience doesn't really understand the nuances, and I include myself in this, between the different barbecue styles, right? Like you talked about, you
Right.
you said earlier, like, oh, it was completely different. They're using hickory, we're using oak. To most people, they're just like, bro, those are just different types of wood. What does that mean? They're like totally different styles? Can you talk to us through like what are these different barbecue styles, and what defines like, Central Texas versus what we
Mhm.
have here mostly down here in Southern California?
Yeah, I think my like I talked about earlier, my first experiences with barbecue were this black style barbecue that was Southern barbecue. Um, that's what I really knew as barbecue, and that, I mean, I remember, being a kid, and, I lived in Pico Rivera, Montebello, Whittier, all over kind of like that East Los Angeles area there. And, I remember there being places where you could, there's, just a specific type of barbecue that came from the South, and that was, basically black people that came to Los Angeles to get out of the South of all the, discrimination and everything that was happening there in the 60s, and, brought this style of barbecue with them, that unfortunately I think it's almost gone. I mean, there's people
Mm.
that are holding it down, like, Kevin Bloodsoe's. Like, I remember going to Compton, to eat at Bloodsoe's barbecue, um, years ago, that kind of barbecue is, mostly centered around pork. So like pulled
Mm-hmm.
pork and pork ribs. And there's even, it depends where you go. They'd be full spare ribs, which is, a whole spare rib, or, uh, the, at Kansas City style, you could see some influences of Kansas City, which is definitely a lot of, meat with sauces on it. But
Mm-hmm.
specifically Texas style or Central Texas, because even the state of Texas itself, I'm a giant barbecue nerd, so be careful. Here we go. Um,
We love it.
has different styles of barbecue throughout the state as well, and then they use different types of wood. So, in southern Texas, you'll get a lot of the barbecue that's cooked with mesquite, which is definitely a more bolder flavor. And you have to be a genius and have a lot of balls to cook with mesquite, especially if you're cooking a piece of protein over a long period of time.
Why is that?
Because the flavor is so strong, not just the flavor, but the wood itself doesn't combust. It combusts at a higher temperature.
Mm.
So it takes a lot of heat to get that wood to combust. And then when it finally does, you have to maintain that. Otherwise, you get a lot of smoldering smoke, which is very acrid and can overpower the flavor of the protein.
Hmm.
So there's a guy, actually, his name's Miguel Vidal. If anybody gets a chance to check it out, but it's called Valentina's Tex-Mex Barbecue. And they were in South Austin, but they relocated to the city of Buda, which is like another 30 minutes from there south. Miguel is one
Hmm.
of the few pitmasters in Texas that actually still uses mesquite. Um, and it's
Wow.
yeah, and he's mastered it, and you can eat his brisket, and it doesn't make you want to vomit. It's a lot of people use mesquite on shorter cooks, and mostly
Yeah.
using the coals of the mesquite to grill chicken or to grill beef, and real thin cuts of beef and things like that.
Yeah, like I saw it, like I know Villa's Tacos, my friend Victor Villa, he
Yeah,
uses mesquite wood for all his cuts, right? But that's cooking
right.
really quickly. It's not
I mean,
keeping it low and slow. Yeah.
that's like the best way to have like a really good carne asada, or even if you're cooking arrachera or any type of skirt steak or whatever. I mean, that's like the real deal right there. I mean, it'll
Mhm.
change the flavor of cooking over gas inside of a restaurant. You know 100%, like the right way to do it.
Yeah, totally. So that's very specific to a certain part of Texas, but then in other
Yeah,
parts of Texas, like Central, and that's where you
yeah,
gravitate toward, or you gravitated towards at least, is more oak based. Is that right?
yeah. So there's a hill country style barbecue, which is something that you still kind of see in Lockhart, Texas. That's where, if you've ever been to Schmitty's or Kreitz, like some of the old barbecue joints that have been there forever. You see these types of brick pits. That's basically what they
Mm.
are, and then the fire is offset from the main chamber. So there's been folks that they build these pits. Uh, and now there's a bunch of pit builders, but it's basically a above ground version of that. That you see now with people pulling them around on trailers, and
Mm.
that's predominantly what you see nowadays. But yeah, this Central Texas style of barbecue is more of letting the protein speak for itself. And now with
Mm.
this craft barbecue movement, that's I mean, we're like 15 years into this craft barbecue movement now. But what is using really good protein, sourcing it from uh, the local farms or wherever. And everybody can kind of thank Aaron Franklin for kind of you know taking what we know now as modern craft barbecue and and making it good again. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of places that were still, cooking barbecue, but it was kind of in this older style. And Aaron really saw this, this 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 Texas, piece of Texas history, and decided that he was gonna, make it great again. And and he, yeah, we all, anybody who's cooking craft barbecue nowadays, we owe a lot to Aaron and what he's done, and myself. I watched a lot of his videos, PBS videos, and read his books and things like that, because we didn't have the opportunities to go work for a barbecue joint that had real pits and used real wood. Everybody was using gas or these pits that were assisted by electricity or wherever it was. So um,
Yeah.
that he was a guy that that really took it and like pushed it to what it is today.
So one word you used was offset. And I've heard a lot talk about grills and offset grills and the difference in those. For those who don't know, what makes a grill offset?
So, just like a grill would be considered direct heat, where your heat source is directly beneath your meat. Where an offset is literally the fire is offset from the chamber, so outside of the chamber where your meat is being cooked. So
Mhm.
the way that works, and it can get kind of technical, but you have a stack at one end, which is your outlet. There's usually some sort of damper, and then you have your inlet, and there can be dampers there. Some do, some don't. But you control your heat with the damper. There's a combination of the
Mm.
amount of wood that you put into the firebox, is what we call it. And
Mhm.
so you can regulate the temperature with your dampers, which is something that I personally love to do and took me a lot of time to figure out. Some folks regulate their temperature just by the amount of wood that they put on. You can
Mhm.
actually have a good sized coal bed, and I could fill the entire firebox full of wood and be able to dial in my temperature to the degree just by adjusting my dampers. Some people can't do that. Some
Hmm.
people rely on just throwing in a split here and there, just to kind of maintain this specific temperature. But there's really no need for that when you really know what you're doing.
And are you, like, there, like, manning the damper the entire time it's cooking, or is it just you come
I
back, you
mean,
check in on it every once in a while?
at one time when I was a rookie to this, I sat in a chair and stared at the fire. I stared at the fire, for hours and hours and hours by myself. Um, but the more you learn and the more you do that, the more you stare at the fire, the more you learn how it works, the way it eats. It's kind of like that movie Backdraft. And it's a great movie if you're
Mhm.
a pitmaster, because they talk a lot about fire. But you see the way it works. You see what happens when it's raining, and your the temperatures that fluctuate on your smoker. You see when it's humid, you see when it's cold, and you see when it's hot, and you
Mhm.
learn because you see the way your protein comes out. For instance, recently at the restaurant, um, we had some ribs that came out a little dark, and some of the edges of the meat kind of looked like they were dried out. So just this happened to be a day when it was raining, which doesn't happen here in California very often. But um, the guys that were manning the pit were throwing more wood in the firebox to kind of
Mm.
regulate that temperature. And what was happening was the rain and the cold was cooling down the smoker, and so it was giving them almost like a false reading, where they were, they were like, okay, we need to throw more wood in here because that we need to get this temperature up. And what they did was they didn't rely on what the fire looked like. They didn't rely on instinct by knowing that, you know, their fire was a certain height, that it was combusting properly. And what they did was they ended up, you know, drying some of the meat out, and the meat got a little bit dark because, you know, I said, hey guys, you know, when things like this happen, you have to trust your gut, you know, and you have to know, like, hey, guess what? This cook is going to take me longer. I'm not going to have everything off by 11 a.m. It's looking more like it's going to be done by noon, and you can't really force it to do anything it doesn't want to. Then you just end up, you know, ruining your product that way. And it's
Yeah.
that things like that come with experience.
That's what I love about, what it is that you do, because there's such like a, you even said something, letting the meat tell you what it wants to be and letting the meat tell you how it wants to cook. Like there's such a respect for just the elements. Like it's literally just like the fire is going to be what the fire is going to be, and it's going to go at the temperature, and you need to be able to read it. You need to know how it eats. You're literally talking about a living, breathing thing that you need to like
Yeah.
respect, and you can't force it. It's not like the restaurant opens at 11 a.m., so we got to have everything ready. I mean, it's just very contrary to how a lot of people think about running and operating businesses in 2023.
Yeah. You know, turning a knob on a stove and knowing where your flame is going to be is a lot different than, you know, having actually work with a living and breathing thing. And, you know, we have to deal with two types of heat as well. We have like a radiating heat, which is something you don't really see,
Mhm.
but it's there. And then you just have, you know, your basic, you know, heat that comes from the wood combusting. Um, I can
Yeah.
tell the difference by opening up the smoker and, you know, getting this type of heat on my face that I know where I consider that to be more of a radiating heat, and it almost feels like being in the sun, you know, versus
Mhm.
like a heat that makes you sweat, you know. And so that learning to or that just, like I said, that just comes with the experience. And you only get that by, you know, working hours and hours and days, and you know, and a lot of time by yourself to figure that out as well, you know.
Well, we're gonna get back to the, contemplative life of being a pitmaster, but I just wanted to, we've taken a little bit of a detour, from your story to learn about the ins and outs of barbecue, but let's get back to
Yeah.
your story because I wanna understand how you got from Whole Foods to Heritage, what that journey was like.
I would cook barbecue in the backyard. Uh, and you know, my aunts or my uncles would, you know, come over, and I would my wife and I, we would have these pretty cool parties in our backyard. And at the time we were living in Midway City off Beach Boulevard, which is pretty close to Huntington Beach. And we upgraded from our little apartment to this little house that we were renting, and we had this giant backyard. And I'd have bonfires back there, and I'd invite friends and family. Like every time, any excuse to have a party, we would have a party, you know. And I'd always provide the food. Um, at one time, I had maybe 3 or 4 smokers in the backyard. Most were hand-me-downs,
Wow.
or at that time, Craigslist. I would see like a curb alert for like a free smoker or like a grill, and I'd go pick that fucker up and bring it home. And you know, so I'd have like all these rusty pieces of shit sitting in my backyard, you know, but they all served
I
a
love that.
purpose. Yeah. And so I have a picture of it somewhere. It's pretty gnarly. But yeah, so people would ask me, hey, I have this party coming up. Do you think you could cook me some, you know, chicken? And I used to do this really awesome. I still do it sometimes, but like this Hawaiian style, or, you know, a mismatch of like maybe a Korean style, you know, marinated
Mm.
chicken. Um, And so I really enjoyed cooking stuff like that. And I would do like the flank cut short ribs too. So I started cooking like these little packages and selling them, where it would be like Galbi short ribs and huli huli chicken or whatever, mac salad, white rice, and people would come to the house and just pick it up, and so that's kind of how it really started. And my wife and I decided one day that we were gonna do like this little backyard pop up, and we invited all of our friends. I think that was when we first like did our Heritage Barbecue Facebook page or whatever, and uh, we had friends that would share, that we were going to be, selling our barbecue, and and it was very odd because the first time that we did the pop up, we had folks that were showing up that we didn't know, and I think some of them were neighbors. There'd be like a few people in line, and my wife's like, "Who the fuck is that?" I'm like, "I don't know. Whatever. They want the
Like, do we
barbecue."
need to call the police? Who are they?
So that was great, and then we did that a few times. And I went and bought some picnic benches and like put them out front, and then I think we ended up getting in trouble actually. One of the neighbors called the health department, and we had the city come out. Yeah, they had
What year was this?
2015, 2016,
Okay.
something like that.
Because if this happened during COVID, it would have been like everybody was expecting
No.
pop-ups, so nobody would have called the health
Yeah,
department. But this
so
was way before that.
this is yeah, pop-ups right now is a thing, but they weren't really a thing back then, like you talked about
Yeah.
with the pandemic. I mean, it was like everybody and their mother did a pop-up because the restaurant was closed during that time. Yeah, they called, and which was, it was kind of a blessing in disguise because it, helped us kind of, take that next step that we needed to do.
Yeah.
I guess one of the neighbors, and I should have knew it was coming. He was coming and complaining and said that he had asthma and he was a vegan and he hated the fucking smell and all this other shit. So I kind of figured it was coming sooner or later. But yeah, so what we ended up doing was we got this little commissary kitchen in the city of Fullerton, right by the airport. And I got my health permit, and we just got to work. And I told my wife, "Hey, let's start doing pop-ups." And I'm a big fan of craft beer, and we had been going to a few of these our local breweries, and became friends with a lot of the guys the owners and the brewers and things like that. So one of the guys that was at one of these breweries invited us to come and sell barbecue there. So that's what we did. And man, that was really like the beginning of this incredible journey that we're still like kind of riding this wave. And from there it snowballed, and it just became this animal. It was like we had this cult following, and we had every weekend we'd have the same people every weekend showing up, and they just kept growing, and I think people were just starving for good barbecue, man. It was like right place, right time. We cornered the market. Like, we started off at smaller breweries, and there'd be too many people there. The breweries loved it because, I mean, they would make a killing on the beer, while people were waiting in line. I mean, it'd be like a Sunday or something, and they would normally do like, if they're lucky, a G or something, and now they were making like, a couple $1,000s or whatever. So we started, small with kind of like these no-name breweries, and then, worked our way up. And I had kind of like this plan. I'm like, someday, we're going to do a pop-up at this brewery. It's a big ass brewery. It's like got plenty of seating. It could hold all of our guests that are coming. And yeah, we made it there. And
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it just and there would never be, I went from a little backyard pit to a 250-gallon smoker. After the very first pop-up, I knew I needed a bigger one, so I had a 500-gallon built, 500-gallon last. I mean, the hard thing was uh, we had so many people that wanted our food that would have to do before I would cook, like the briskets, and then I'd cook the butts, and then I would cook the pork ribs kind of like at the same time. And since we needed the space, I
Mm-hmm.
would have to do these cooks where I would start like at 2 a.m. and I would just fill the entire smoker of only briskets. So that would be like a 12 to 14-hour cook on just cooking briskets. And then after those came off, then I would add my butts on there. I'd fill the whole smoker with butts, smoke all those. That would take like 8 hours, pull those off, maybe try getting like a little bit of sleep somehow. And then doing the ribs the morning of the actual pop-up and filling the whole smoker with ribs, taking all those off, and then throwing all the sausages. And in between that,
Wow.
we were cold smoking sausages because you have to cook sausages twice. You cold smoke them, which is a process where you're cooking at a lower temperature and you're getting a lot of like billowing smoke because you have to keep
Mm,
the temperature at a lower temperature so that the fat doesn't render out. That's why how you
mm,
could tell like a good sausage maker from a bad sausage maker or cooker, because
interesting.
there's a balance of heat um, where you can ruin your sausages. So anyway, it's a long story, but it's a 3-day process to turn out like a really great proper sausage. And so
So what? But it took you 3 days just to put together a pop up. It sounds like.
yeah, yeah. Well, no, it took us a whole week. So we would get into the kitchen, the commissary kitchen on a Monday, and we would be cleaning all the dishes, the shapers, our equipment from Sunday. And while we
Mm-hmm.
were in there, we were prepping for the following weekend. So like one day we would do all that, and the next day we would go shopping for everything we needed. The next day we would come into the kitchen and we would fabricate all the proteins. So we would trim all the proteins, trim all the ribs. We would take the trimmings and we would make sausage with it, and then we would begin our prep for all the sides. So we would make mac and cheese. We would cook beans. We would make sauces. We would prepackage all the sauces. Um, and then Saturday was like the cook day. So that was like, like I said, it was an all day, all night process. I'd be completely wiped out, and I would get like 2 hours of sleep. And then I would get up early in the morning to cook the pork ribs. And then we would go to our storage unit. We have like a public storage place, and that's where we kept like our easy ups, our tables, or whatever, and we would load all that into a rented, U-Haul or a Penske, um, and then we would transport that to the brewery. Then we would set up the kitchen, and everything had to be legit too, because it's all health department, would come out and inspect you and make sure everything's on the up and up and your temperatures are right. So we would do the pop up, which would last, a few hours. So then we'd have to break everything down. We have to drop everything off at the kitchen. Then we would have to unload everything into the storage unit. And then we would have to drop off the Penske. And then I could come home. Then we could finally go to sleep.
Dude, honestly, you've just made me reconsider every time I see a quote unquote pop up at a brewery. I'm gonna go support because I'm like, holy
Dude, it's a
shit,
lot of
these people
fucking
have been
work,
through
man.
some work. Yeah. Oh my God, that's nuts.
Yeah, we did
S-
that. We did that every day, every weekend. We did that every weekend. And I'm talking like, it literally took a whole week to prepare for these events. But we did that for 3 years straight. I think maybe there was like a weekend or two that we didn't do it, but we did that, like we hustled our asses off, and it wasn't easy, and a lot of people like they want to do it, and like, I mean, we're totally self-funded, we didn't have any investors. We did it all from the ground up, from the backyard to where we are today.
Dude, congrats. At what point did you start to sort of get the like opportunity and the idea like, hey, we might be able to sustain a brick and mortar here?
Yeah, I think that's just kind of natural progression if you're just kind of paying attention to what's happening to you and the world around you. You always kind of want a little bit more, especially when I started to see that this was something that could mean a career, or it could mean like, success for us. And I one thing I forgot to mention was, for the first year and a half, I was actually still working. So I attempted to do it, doing full time and then doing the barbecue part time. But when I started making more money doing the pop-ups, I was like, man, fuck this job. Like, I'm just gonna go part time. So so I went part time on the job, and within a matter of time, I was like, I'm killing myself. I got to dedicate like everything I got to this barbecue path that we were on. So I ended up quitting my job. And my wife, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job that I've been at for 7 years to follow this path. And she's like, do it. Like I said it earlier,
Mm-hmm.
she's somebody who was always in my corner. So I did it, and she was helping me out while she was still working part time. She went from part time, or I'm sorry, she was working full time. She went from full time to part time, and she followed me down the same path where she ended up quitting her job that she was at. So now we were both, doing this full time, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just a crazy, crazy thing that, a crazy time in our life. But yeah, going back to with the restaurant, we were having folks that would stop by and, hey, my name is Mike, whatever, and I'm from this restaurant group, and I have my card here, and I'm like, you know what? There's 200 people that are waiting in this line, and at the time, I'd be slicing the meat as well. So not only was I cooking all the meat, but I was slicing the meat. So like, if you want to talk, you gotta get in that line. And by the time you get up, you can have a few minutes depending on how much you order to talk to me. But yeah, it was they had this, it was people dropping cards off, business cards, all the time. And um, this they were looking, this one restaurant, well, not really a restaurant group, but
McDonald's
developers.
or
No, they were developers, and they had this property that they said that they thought would be a perfect fit for us. And they kept coming, and I was like, okay, I should probably give these guys, some time since they're making all this effort. So we heard them out, and that's when they were talking about our space in San Juan Capistrano. So this was 2019 sometime. This is right before the pandemic hit. So,
yeah.
we liked the property. We thought it was really cool. It's an historic area. The building was old as shit, and I love really old buildings. And we thought it was perfect. We were scared as hell. Now we're gonna have to come up with, rent every month, and at the time we thought it was a lot of money. And we had to figure out like how we were gonna make this happen. But we took a chance. We figured we might as well. We've taken a lot of chances, and we signed the lease. And that's when the pandemic hit. And so they had just started construction on the property, and we were like, oh shit, what are we gonna do now? You know, everybody was closing their doors, and you know, I'm sure you remember LA looked like at that time was like a war zone, and we're
Mm-hmm.
like, fuck, man, like, what are we gonna do? You know, we don't have regular jobs anymore. This is, you know, this is really scary. Like, how are we gonna make a living now? You know, and their breweries were closed, and you know, so we did what we could, and that was pivot. We started cooking barbecue out of undisclosed locations. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we sold barbecue. We would I was at the time I was using this restaurant that was closed, and we were cooking briskets, we were cooking pork butts, we were cooking ribs, and we were chilling them down. We were vacuum sealing them, and we were just slanging them on our Instagram. And you know, to our surprise, I mean, that was crazy because we would end up making more money during the pandemic selling vacuum sealed meats than we did at pop-ups, you know, and there wasn't all this pressure to, you know, set everything up and do all this shit, you know. It was like, it was
Yeah.
pretty awesome. So we were able to kind of put some money into our banks, and you know, we ended up surviving that. And you know, they started construction again on the restaurant, and then we opened up. Grand opening was August 8th, 2020. And then we had to deal with all that madness of, you know, whatever the side of the fence that people were on during that time. You know, it's such a crazy time, you know, like, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, why are you
Yeah.
wearing a mask, don't stand next to me, you know, don't stand too close to me, you know, why are you guys open, you guys should be closed, you know, close your
Mm-hmm.
restaurant, open your restaurant, you can open it, but you can't sit here, and everything that went with that, you know. And it was such a crazy time, but you know, we actually did very well during that time as well. Orange County is definitely, they were a lot more laid back on the COVID stuff versus Los Angeles. And so what that did was it opened a market to Los Angeles for us, because families would get in their cars and they would leave LA because nothing was open, you
Yeah.
know, and they would drive down to Orange County and come to eat barbecue. And and so we gained like this LA audience that only came because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we get so much love from LA to this day. I mean, people drive to Heritage from all over the place. I mean, hours and hours to come eat our food, and it's pretty rad. But yeah, I think that's how we got, you know, like, we started getting the writers from like Eater coming out, and you know, LA Times, and you know, Time Out magazine, everybody in between, LA Taco, and you know, it's crazy. So first year we were open, we got an Orange County Register's best new restaurant, and
Mm-hmm.
Brad Johnson, who wrote a really awesome article on us. And the following year we got best restaurant in Orange County. And
Wow.
so we went to bet, yeah. Uh, Following that, we that's when we got the first got entered into the 101. No, I believe that was in 2020 or 2021, where they didn't rank it, but
Yeah.
we got listed on the 101. And then the next year we got number 19, which is pretty awesome for a restaurant that's not even located in Los Angeles.
I know.
Uh, yeah, and the Michelin thing was the most trippiest thing. That's the Michelin award for the Bib Gourmand was like something that raised hair on my neck and like gave me goosebumps, because I just could not fucking believe that. That was like, that's a highlight of my career for sure.
You're like, we've come a long way from Knott's Berry Farm. Congratulations on that. That's amazing. I wanted to ask you because, you know, you just made the 101 again. Congratulations. And every
Thank you.
time that an Orange County restaurant makes it on the 101, there's always like some voices that, especially here in Los Angeles, that are like, oh, why are we including these Orange County
Uh,
restaurants? No, 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 no. They get really upset. What do you say to those people who don't think OC should be included?
you know, well, I think Carlos Salgado from Taco Maria was kind of like the first to kind of gain, I guess if you would call it, upset for those people. And I've seen those comments, on LA Times. Why are they in there? They're not even from there. But man, I don't know. I think and to us, really, it didn't matter if we were number 101 on the list. I mean, it's just an honor to be
Mm-hmm.
included in something like that. It's not about rank for us. I mean, if it was an Orange County list, then it would probably get a little bit personal. Like this year, I think I don't know I think we were 27 or something like that this year. But, some
Mm-hmm.
folks asked me, they're like, hey, are you upset that you went down? I'm like, no way, man. You know how many fucking great restaurants are in LA, and especially ones that just came out this past year? Like, we're just fucking humbled to be on that list. Um, but yeah, I mean, they can, those people, I don't know. I think people that say things like that, they probably shouldn't just open their mouths in the first place. Like my
Yeah.
mom always said, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. Uh,
Totally.
but
That's how I feel too. That's how, I mean, I don't know. For your sake, I get a little pissed off when people are like that, because it's like, hey, we live in a region that is the greater Los Angeles region. For like, our city by its definition is not like a city like other cities. We don't have a central like nucleus or a central downtown. So who cares if we get spread down to Orange County? It's just more good food for the rest of us. So
I can get in my car on a Sunday with no traffic and be in downtown in an hour. So it's not really that, far. So, um, I like I said, I think it's just an honor to be in it, and be included and get to hang out with such great chefs and rub elbows with people who I consider our peers. And I think that um, barbecue, the way it's viewed now, I think and I've argued this before, it's just as hard as working in a fine dining restaurant, if not harder. And
yeah,
it's like being a chef. Like at one time, it wasn't really considered such a prestige thing. You know what I mean? It's just up until the last maybe like 20 years that it's really turned into what it is now. And being a
yeah.
pitmaster, I mean, frankly, in California, I don't think people really have like an opinion on who is in the pitmaster. I mean, we just, we kind of had something going here at one time and we lost it. And so yeah, I think that um, I think it's really cool that we get to hang out with some really awesome and great chefs and people who I have looked up to. Like I just talked about Carlos Salgado from Taco Maria, who just recently closed his restaurant. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that guy was on that list, and he was on that list a few times. And I don't remember what he came in last year, but I think it was definitely in the top five. I would think,
He
and
was
maybe
number one at some point.
he was number one at one point. Yeah, and so and then we went to that tortilla tournament together. It was cool to work in the
Yeah,
same tent with him. I jumped at the opportunity to have Carlos in our same tent.
that's awesome. Well, I want you mentioned sort of like the California pitmaster culture, and one term we've seen thrown around recently is this Cali Craft Barbecue label, which I know that you've really been a huge part of. I think you may have even played a part in coining that phrase. Um, how would you describe Cali Craft Barbecue?
Well, I mean, I don't know if anybody else is really using that term. I think it was kind of something that we stumbled across. At when we first started cooking barbecue, it was like strictly brisket, ribs, and sausage. We kept it very traditional. We had the traditional sides, and you know, uh, I had this kind of I had this idea that we wanted to make the cuisine a little bit more approachable for everyone. Whether it's your the wife, who is not a big fan of barbecue. We wanted to make these flavors more approachable. So, just like cooking, we wanted to make the food more balanced for everyone's palate, and that meant, you know, kind of doing, for lack of a better word, these fusions of, you know, our area and like what people eat around us. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we were in Orange County. I'm a strong advocate for telling anybody who comes here, where should I eat when they come to Orange County? I say, go to Little Saigon. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just this community of hundreds, if not thousands, of places to eat. This really awesome, amazing food. And so we wanted to incorporate some of those flavors into what we were doing. The Mexican flavors, obviously, from our heritage, um, the Vietnamese flavors, the Korean flavors, and what we did was we basically looked around, the kitchen, and we said, we started having the different chefs and the different cooks create these family meals, and we
Mm-hmm.
would all eat them and be like, fuck, dude, we gotta fucking put this on the menu. This is awesome. So they're like, well, would you be down to do that? I'm like, yeah, man, let's fucking put it on there. So, we started doing, um, like these masubis, and then, we started doing the banh mi's with brisket, and everything in between that. And people were very they they enjoyed it, and we just decided that we were gonna just kind of push that envelope a little bit more every time, within reason. But yeah, California craft barbecue, to us, is kind of making things that people would seem more approachable to anyone. We
Mm-hmm.
even do vegan items on our menu. So
Whoa.
yeah, it's fun. And you know what? Mushrooms are a lot cheaper than brisket. So any times that I can push mushrooms on a menu, I'm all for that. Especially nowadays.
It sounds like that neighbor who put in the complaint with the health department back in your early days, finally getting his way. So one other thing I wanted to ask you is just like, we've heard so much about how tough it is as a pit master, both like especially physically, but I imagine it can be pretty tough mentally as well, having to spend so many hours like by yourself tending the flame and whatnot. You've been doing this for a long time, and I can only imagine it's taken a little bit of a toll on you. How do you balance that today now that you're in a different place in your career?
I think my mental state now is a little bit more complicated than it was back in those days. You have a lot of time to think and contemplate when you're working by yourself for all those hours and think. You just have a lot of time to
Mhm.
think. And so I think honestly, it was very therapeutic for me. Um, there's something that I enjoy about kicking back by the fire and you know, just running through thoughts in my head. And that time you know, was great for me to figure out where my life was going and what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. Now, uh, it's using my brain more than I really want to, and a lot of strategy, and figuring things out, and dealing with employees and everything that comes with, running two restaurants. And but yeah, there's a lot of times where uh, I could just have to myself, which is something that I enjoy. I love my time alone. I love going places by myself and just listening to the world around me, kind of thing. I enjoy the stuff like that,
Hmm.
especially getting older. Um, and so yeah, I really think that if you really love cooking barbecue, you enjoy those moments. And still to this day, I just recently, and I haven't even fired it up yet, but I finally bought myself a little personal pit that's in my backyard right now, and I'm looking forward to hanging out and just be in the backyard, but now with my kids and things like that, and just cooking a brisket. I never thought like, hey, I'm never gonna go into the backyard and cook a brisket again, but now, if you if you go through as much as I've gone through in these past couple years, and with all the stress and everything that comes with that, like I'm like, that's what I need, man. I need to sit by that fire and just chill.
It's what you love. It's clearly what you love, and I feel
Yeah,
like sometimes when what you love also becomes your business, it can be tough to like still find the time to actually like find the joyful moments in it as well. So it's cool that you're doing that as well at home. So, kudos to you. Last question for you, Danny. You've been very generous with your time, so thank you. You know, you talked about how you're a dreamer, and it sounds like, you've really accomplished a lot of your dreams, and it's really cool and inspiring to see. But as you look back on your journey, what are you most proud of?
I think for me, the driving factor was my family, right? So I think I'm grateful for the people that have been around me and have encouraged me. Uh, because I don't think without that, especially my wife, um, we wouldn't be where we are today. But I found I found something. I stumbled across something that I think that everybody has some sort of talent, or there's some there's just everybody has something great that they can do, and I just happen to find it. And it's taken not just me personally, but my family on this crazy journey. And um and then- and then I've had people tell me how inspiring it is to them, and that's great. I don't really like to hear all the time, when people are like, "Oh man, that's you're so awesome," and this and that. I'm not a guy that likes to hear that, but it's great that it's inspiring other folks. Um, but yeah, I've taken it's taken years to get to where we are, and what I celebrate the most is the fact that, like, my children can take something away from this. Like, they've gotten this step up to where their paths of their lives are heading now. Um, and like my mom was a single mom, and she worked as hard as she could to give me the life that she was able to give us. And man, I just gave my kids, a whole leg up on where they're gonna go, and I can't wait to see, where they take their lives, or what's gonna happen with Heritage. I'm hoping that it lives on, well past me, and creating this, generational wealth, and these opportunities for my family. That's where I'm hoping that they take this.
I know you don't like to hear it, but it's fucking cool to see, and congratulations, because we're all
Thank you.
rooting for you, and it's really cool to see your success. Danny, just want to say thank you again for your time. On a closing note, if people are looking for Heritage Barbecue, where can they find you?
So Instagram, we're at Heritage Barbecue. Barbecue spelled out Barbecue. We're also on Facebook, and you can find me personally at the San Juan Capistrano location or in our Oceanside Brew Pub now.
Get down to Orange County, Los Angeles, people. No matter how upset you might be that there's an Orange County restaurant on the 101, trust me, it'll be worth your while. Danny, thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the LA Food Podcast. Thanks to our guest, Danny Castillo, for making the time to speak with us. If you like what you heard today, dear listener, please go to wherever you listen to podcasts, leave us a rating, review, subscribe if you should be so inclined. Seriously, all of that stuff really helps. We'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the LA Countdown. That's LACOUNTDOWN. You can also find me on Instagram at LA Food Pod. That's LAFOODPOD.